Hello and welcome to another Let's Draw session where I'll be drawing the face or the head. My name is Zawon Gomezulu. I'm an art instructor and author, and I help once aspiring or struggling artists. Hello and welcome to another Let's Draw session. Be drawing the face or the head, if you prefer to call it that. My name is Zawon Gomezulu. I'm an art instructor and author, and I help once aspiring or uninspired artists fall in love with drawing again. Sharpen my pencil and we are going to get into it. Now, depending on what it is I'm drawing or what I might be up to in my drawing session, I go over some rough sketches of what I want to draw, and then I get into a more detailed one. And this I learned as a good habit to practice from my art instructor. What it does is it prepares you to make your mistakes early and not on the thing that you want to finish with. So I'll be sketching on this one, for example, and you could do a warm-up session if you like, but depending on how much you draw, you may or may not need it. So I'm gonna start drawing a rough look at this face. I'm drawing my wife to just make that clear. Just felt like doing justice because other times that I've drawn a portrait of her, I did give it a lot of my attention, but a recent one I did of our anniversary could have been better with more time. So because I'm doing this live, like a live commentary, expect mistakes. I don't have the privilege to cut through and skip to something else if I do make a mistake. So bear with me. Some people like that, some don't. When it's more free flowing and less edited and all cleaned up, just a raw kind of experience. The most important thing I hope you get out of this is some insights from somebody who basically abandoned drawing altogether for nearly a decade and returned as recent as 2025, so a year ago from the time of recording, and leveled up from basic to at least intermediate in less than a year. If it's possible for me to do it with a wife and two amazing girls, then regardless of what's going on or whatever responsibilities you have in your life, it's possible for you too. There is a way to make it work. I know there are people who struggle to draw with focus if they are talking at the same time. And heck, maybe that's happening to me too. Maybe I'm making a bit more mistakes than I would have if I was just silent. But it's cool to challenge ourselves. I can already see, like, with what I did here, the eyes are too big, bigger than the reference photo I'm seeing. But this is good. As I said earlier on, this is the place to get the mistakes out of the way. And once my hand, my brain, have it in memory as to where things should be, that then makes the picture that I actually want to draw look the way that I want it to. People have asked me about using reference and how to draw without using reference, as if using reference is a crime. And to a degree, I can understand why you might want to go away from that and just start drawing from imagination. But what most people don't realize is, number one, there's nothing wrong with using reference. There are many professional artists that use it as a means to get inspiration, and then they make it their own thing. So that's the first thing that you need to know. Many of the artists that you admire still use reference. And number two, it doesn't have to be one for one with the reference or whatever it is that you're drawing. So you can always make it your own thing. If someone is supposed to look a certain way, like, I mean, you look at the original picture, this does not look anything like my wife. And you can own that, right? May not have been what you intended to do, but already you have the opportunity to create a new character from the reference you're using. So yeah, don't demonize references. I mean, we all reference something some way somehow, right? There's no inspiration that is inspired exclusive to itself and without any connection to what's around us. So some food for thought, anybody who may not have known. So now let's see if I've learned anything from my mistakes. It's not even the picture that I'm gonna do, but at least if I'm getting closer with the rough passes, right? Because features of her face don't change. The way to draw them might change depending on the angle, right? But she still looks like herself at a different angle. And so, because I'm getting used to the structure of her face, this is not a waste of time. That's one way you can also mix it up when it comes to using reference or whatever it is that you want to draw to, have a different experience that's still feeding into what you ultimately want to do. Just mapping out some places that will help me in the positioning of where things are supposed to be. I can't say that this photo is foreshortened, but like I can already see that, for example, eyebrows are too low. Can make them higher, and I need that space to do something with her eyes. This is not a video that's meant to be about, showing off, but just the process. Just the process of how one arrives to a certain place in the final drawing. And it just demystify for some of you what it's actually like to draw really well. I know I'm not the best artist that I know, and I know this isn't the best that I can potentially do. But I also won't deny that my skills have improved over time. I don't feel afraid to try new things. I'm very confident in what I'm capable of doing, and even with all its mistakes, I think I'm free, I'm not defined by what it is that I could do, didn't do. None of that stuff affects my ability to show up and keep drawing. But I didn't figure it out on my own. I had to learn from people. I had to figure out that I had to learn from people, but once I did, the rest became easier. Alright, so that's basically her face, and that's the outside of her ear. So rough pass. Uh, she doesn't have a big forehead like her husband. And let's see. Here's a little darker. Sometimes all it takes is shading and all to get it to look more like the person. Like when there's a lack of depth, it's difficult to see resemblance. I'm not saying that's what's gonna make it happen here, but I do know that those things make a difference, generally speaking. And here could just be more straight. It's trying to capture the compression. She's on her arm like that, but I'm not gonna put too much into this. Let's finish that up. Uh, and I'm very curious to see how well I'll draw in a few months from now, especially like decades from now. But a few months from now, I'd like to see the differences. I'd like to see, if my understanding has grown, if I'm learning from my mistakes. I imagine that in the very near future, I'll be able to capture likeness much quicker than I do now. And one would say maybe that what matters is getting there, and I agree. But if you can get there faster, that's just um, evidence of understanding that is improved. So even what I just did now has already helped with looking closer to what I'm drawing in terms of the shape of the head. But like I said, I'm not gonna get into this one so much. And I'll do one version or rough pass of the picture that I actually want to draw. You ever seen those artists that they they basically get the thing, like they'll use ink and they'll just have it mapped down. It's so impressive, right? Like it the the freedom to just make that kind of commitment onto a page. It's very intimidating for up and comers, and while I wouldn't consider myself a beginner anymore, I still have a ways to go. My art instructor, his name is Patrick Jones, and he encourages drawing, together basically. If you're gonna draw the left eye, draw the right eye, left eyebrow, the right eyebrow. And I try to incorporate that in my drawing sessions. And I understand like I have an understanding of how like it's unified with you drawing things in groups or in pairs. and then you continue, and there's less time like trying to figure out, okay, what's next, because you've mapped out, okay, the eyebrows, like, okay, then the eyes, then okay, go to the bridge of the nose, and then the two nostrils, right? So should have already shown the picture that I'm gonna draw. I don't know if I'll have it up the whole time, but you'll know by the time that you are watching it, so you'll know what I finally decided. Ultimately, when it comes to drawing, it's about finding your way of doing it. And by that, it does not mean reinventing the wheel, because what works works where fundamentals are concerned. But I explain it this way in recent interviews that I've had. It's like you have a house that you're building, and next to you is also another house. The both of you, or both of your houses, have the same foundation. So it doesn't necessarily mean that what you build on top of it will be the same. Might have the same foundation, but then you decide to build with concrete, and your neighbor decides to build with wood. And how many floors your house will have, the shape, the design, the colors, all those things are different to one another, but what holds them up are the same thing. So definitely know your fundamentals and then build upon that. Like you can all call drawing lines and shapes, etc. And how do you get to the same place? How do you draw the human face? May not be exactly like mine, but you're using the lines and shapes as well. I think I would probably make this part a bit smaller, the temple of my head. And as I said, this is the rough stuff. In a few minutes, I'm gonna begin doing the actual thing. But it's a good space, as I've said, to get an idea of how you are going to ultimately draw this. Draw your subject, rather. What I'm using is a charcoal pencil. It's really cool. Allows you to blend. I mean, you can blend with lead as well. Um, if they're the dark ones, your 6, 8, 10B. Is there a 10B? I don't remember. But I'd like to think so. But yeah, just blending it, and then as the shading, and trying to look for certain markers. The jaw is a little lower like that. And I know that this side is slightly different. It's asymmetry and everyone has it. The reason why some drawings look a bit unnatural or not human are because of the symmetry. In fact, if you've seen pictures like on social media of a celebrity, when they try to make the face symmetrical, they look weird. It's for that reason, like asymmetry. No one's face is really that symmetrical. There are those that are like close, but not 100%. If you were to actually want to make it symmetrical, you would see the difference. So Don't be deceived by those, those pictures, especially the ones that have like the ones that have the grid on their faces, and like making try like really forcing that whole symmetry narrative on that person. Again, there are people whose faces are more symmetrical than others, but almost symmetrical is still not symmetrical. And it's cool that way, honestly, like you think about it. Something that seems and feels more natural when done that way as opposed to um, everything all straight and stuff. There's something that's more appealing. I think we just connect with it because even though we don't see it consciously, subconsciously we understand. Like we know intuitively that um, that this looks real or good because it embraces the symmetry. And I guess as I'm going to get into what I am here to draw, let's talk about embracing mistakes. So, embracing mistakes is a secret to becoming a better artist. How so? Well, in one of the videos made, I've spoken about the seven, mistakes that artists make, the biggest ones that cause them to quit. And one of them is perfectionism. And yet, the reality of it is there is no such thing as a perfect drawing. And why I love sketchbooks is because you have the freedom, the permission to make as many mistakes as you want. It's yours, you don't have to show anyone, right? And even if you do, like, this isn't something that's defining. It's literally the process in which you eventually get better. So that's what sketches are for. It's pointless to always want to draw like really detailed, realistic drawings every single time that you want to draw. It gets exhaustive. Like, just think about it. I'm sure some of you just felt that um, when you heard that. Like, just the thought every time, the detail, etc. Like, nah, it's not what makes drawing great. Like, if you think about what may have brought you to drawing, it was not necessarily to make great art, but was the fact that you could make art, that you drew something and it looks like something, right? I have an almost 2 year old girl who has been sketching a lot lately, and it's nothing, you know, impressive by our standards. And look, I'll be fair. It's not as if there isn't art that is great out there that inspires you and makes you want to become a better artist. But the point I want to get at is the fact that like she has scribbles and stuff, and I actually admire her confidence. There's a confidence in her lines which many of us kind of lose along the way. And so I thought that was cool to witness, and just her not caring so much about how it looks, which I want to believe. I can't read her mind, but I know that if she did care, she'd always cry about it when she was done. But no, she just keeps going at it. And they're genuinely impressive. Like, definitely better than what I what I remember doing in the past. So, mistakes, or rather, the purpose and the point of drawing, right? We are not defined by the process. In fact, like just drawing, like I said, just making something, that's what makes it joyful. And of course, as we grow, we want to grow our skill. Nothing wrong with that. I'm all for that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have worked to improve my own skills and get better in a short space of time. But is that the reason to draw? It's the reason to draw get better, because then where what's the end to that? Can you ever arrive truly? Could you ever reach a level that you feel I don't have to learn anything else? I don't have to draw anything else. I think that's difficult to say that there is. I wanted to do as minimal editing as possible. But that's the nature of life. You will have things that come in the way of what you want to do. And it's to work around that sort of delivery thing. I don't even remember what I last spoke about. I know it's all around mistakes, symmetry, asymmetry, embracing it. Well, let's talk about the drawing some more. Uh, One good thing that happened from me leaving right now is the fact that I noticed the nose being a bit lower than need be, or rather lower than it's supposed to be. So, getting that fresh set of eyes. Of course, you're in the zone, you're doing something. The last thing you're hoping for is a disturbance. But it is what it is. It will happen. It did happen. So, always make room for that in your mind. I need to do that more often, especially since I have a wife and kids. I don't live alone, and people need me. And they're not out here wanting to ruin my drawing session or anything like that. I know that for a fact. Some people do, come from environments that don't encourage their gifts. And I feel for you if that's your situation. You know. Let me see. I think the nose is okay where it is. I don't know about the eyes. Feeling like the lips are a bit too high. Not even about, how long it is, but high compared to where the nose is. Unless I do this, then that helps a bit to lower it to a degree. So faces. When I came back to doing faces in 2025, they did not look that good. I approached learning the basics as though I didn't know how to draw anything. And it really helped. And learning all the techniques, the easy way to do it, that really helped my artwork a ton, and always refer back subconsciously to those methods. the easier it is to understand something, the faster you'll become at implementing it. And the understanding doesn't come before you do the thing, it comes while you're doing the thing. So don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to try, new processes or methods. Don't be afraid to discover a new teacher. There's some people who their teaching method doesn't really work with how you do things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't speak that much to the teacher as it does to just compatibility. Sometimes that's all it is. Somebody in your life that I wouldn't say they're a bad person, but you don't get along with them either, and it is what it is. It's not like you have to. There are plenty of other people that you connect with more. So it's the same thing even with art and who you learn from. I'm now adding a little bit of shading around the areas, darker areas of her face. The first portrait I did of my wife was really embarrassing. Well, embarrassingly bad. I showed her still. I'm glad I did it. I took a picture. But I wasn't like showing anybody. Like, hey, look, this drawing of my wife. I did for the other one that I did again months later after learning a bit more. And then I did one more for her birthday. And that's the best one I've done so far. The one of our anniversary, what makes it the good thing about that one, because sometimes in your drawings, one drawing will have a better attribute. There's something that you nailed better than in another drawing. It could be a subjective thing, what I'm about to say, but I know that what I could note, what I could see from the way in which I approached it, is her likeness was a lot stronger with the with the anniversary one as opposed to her birthday. It still looked like her, and that reminds me I need to make sure that I add the little dot she has on her face. I've been forgetting to add that in her recent drawing, so this time I'm doing it right. This time I'm making amends. So yeah, I found that like her likeness was a lot stronger in that picture than on her birthday. But I mean, it was drawn afterwards. I don't stop drawing, my skills improved a bit. I'm basically saying it's the natural next step. I'm trying to make the eyes, let me see, kind of equal in height. It was a bit lower than I wanted it to be, or that I was fine with. But that's better now. So yeah, isn't it interesting how drawings can look in the process versus what they look like in the end? How you expect drawing to actually be versus the process of how it actually is. And I mean, again, already mentioned, you think of someone like Kim Jong-il, and he's passed away, he would like get the ink in or the ink down and draw away, you know. Not that he never sketched, but like it's impressive, it's admirable. But it's not the only way to draw. And you can probably reach that level if you learn the right way to do it, you know, if you learn how. But that shouldn't be your defining point or your standard for knowing how to draw. It would be good to expose yourself to different kinds of artists and how they arrive to where they currently are, and not just looking at one reference, because you'd be surprised the people who inspire you to draw that may not necessarily gel well with how easy, like the easier way it is for you to learn. So always explore and yeah, have fun with the process. She's got her beautiful long hair just coming down. And try not to make it big at the top than it actually is, and it's not gonna be a 1-for-1, but you still want it to, look like the person. Now, some things look a little bit weird at this stage, but it's not something that we can't fix. And it's just gonna look better in the end. So if I'm looking, what would I want to change? Let's see. That's more detail. That's not it. Maybe just a little bit of that. I don't want to say this is a cross the bridge where we get there moment. I want to see if I can figure out what's going on right now. Okay, so here's one thing that I can already see is a bit off, and that's her eyebrows compared to the height of her eyes. So we're gonna pick those up. It's the first time I've actually like used the camera to help me like get a fresh perspective, and then I look at the reference. This is a hack. I just discovered something that is gonna be, well, it's already a game changer for me. Like crazy. Yeah, her thing is more in the middle here. This on the side. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, here, let's get the shoulder. Just because it's there. Not that we have to give it attention, but just mapping it out better. These aren't things that I'm gonna work on in detail. So, all right. We've gone through, I think, the most important part of the drawing. We've got the prelims in, we've got the structure in. We had that a lot earlier. But I'd say this is good. This is good. Just one last thing I need to fix for make this huge commitment. And I think it's something to do with the nose. Just a bit bigger. Just a bit. Nothing crazy. Just a bit. That might be what I'm missing. And then we'll fine tune it as we get to the rendering stage. But I think that's good enough. Let's get into the next layer. Layering is actually one way of drawing which I didn't even know was a thing. Like I had seen, for example, my younger brother, shout out, when he draw on his tablet, he put up some of his drawings out and you'd see like the layering process. Seeing some people using Photoshop. I've played with one of the Adobe stuff, I think was Illustrator at some point in my life. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But I had no idea that even when it came to drawing, it had a similar process. So it's crazy how universal principles are. And when it came to drawing, I was such an amateur, I thought I had to focus on so much detail, etc. Not necessarily. It's nowhere near as important as getting the right things to look the right way. What does that mean? It means if this looks like a human being, then I'm doing something right. And then I can take it from there. That's essentially it. Nothing deeper than the fact that um, the subject, whatever you're drawing, should look something close to what is seen in real life. Unless it's something completely fictitious like an alien. Though these days it's a debate as to whether these things are alive or not, like are real, sorry, or not. I do think aliens to be more demonic rather than the way they are described by the news and mainstream media. But one thing we can probably all agree on is that it's become a topic of discussion, and maybe there is more credence to it than we thought. Which is such an interesting digression into like movies and stuff. Um, seem to have predicted these things beforehand, and doesn't look like they were aware. You know, questions of where truth comes from and what is truth and what is the purpose of life and what are we all doing here. All these questions that you're not weird for wanting to know, and all these questions that I truly believe have answers. So let's see how things unfold. Now I am giving more detail to the eye, and so interesting. When I'm looking at this drawing, it looks to me like, or the picture actually, the eye is a little bit closer than I had mapped it out here. Over here like that. It's just a little bit closer. And here's the thing when you wanting to correct a drawing. Oh, I should turn that off. it can go completely wrong. But do it anyway. Why not? At some point, you're going to have to address the issue. And imagine you're doing a commission or some kind of presentation, and if you took the risky but bold and sometimes necessary step of correcting your mistake when you saw it, it leaves us with some really impressive work. So, something that was worth doing. Never be afraid to embrace failure. Even the concept of failure in reality is a bit misunderstood, or a lot actually, because it's the literal platform in which you are able to learn and develop and grow and see where you went wrong so that you do better the next time. There is no other way that we learn outside of the process. So, failure, for what it actually is never meant to define you, but only to develop you. And the only reason why you would feel like failure defines you is the mere fact of how we've been trained and taught in schools to feel like if we didn't get all the answers correct, we were foolish, we were dumb, or that there's only one right way to the answer. So these things feed into us subconsciously in how we understand life, which is crazy. Something that seemed irrelevant is absolutely playing a role in how you approach your drawings and even how you feel yourself about your progress, your mistakes, and all these things. So, embrace failure, unlearn the wrong way to interpret your mistakes. Like in life, you have the opportunity to do two things: look to grow or look to stay the same, or in fact, get worse, because there is no staying the same. Everything in life is changing. Even if you don't want to embrace new technologies, whether it's your AI or whatever comes, like things around us are always changing. The climate is not the same, people are not the same, societies, you name it. So if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And in every situation in life, you're presented with the option to grow or become less. I didn't want to say shrink, it sounded a bit lame. I don't know. I don't know if that's just a me thing. You're gonna grow or you're gonna shrink. It's like, am I? you know? Doesn't hit the same. What I'm trying to say. Like you're either getting strong or you're getting weaker. But there is no staying the same. Something I've noticed about nostrils is the way they kind of come to a close, which I need to get better at um, at pulling off. I also have a tendency of making the nostrils a bit rounder than they actually are. So, and even as I've said it now, I've done something about it. Could have made it a moment that had me go, man, why am I even trying? Or I could make it a moment that allows me to go, you know what? I've been doing that. Let me see what happens if I do something else. In this picture, my wife is not smiling. So I'm not gonna make her smile. Could do that in the future or in another picture that I do. This one, no. This one's fine, no. It's gonna look better in the end. I'm happy with the way it's looking right now. And yeah, just seeing all these other characteristics and attributes that are just gonna make the picture a lot better. I used to like photorealistic drawings. Had a conversation with some. I'll even call her my student, but she's one of the people who follow my stuff, and she likes to do realism, like realistic drawings, which is cool. And I made her think about or ponder why that is the case. Now, for me, I like hyper realistic because though it catches elements of, realism or how something actually looks, you also have creative control to do it in your own way. Right now, I'm not worried about the hair and catching every single little follicle that I can see, right? But I don't have to put it on there for it to basically send the message in which I want to send. What is that message? I don't know. All I'm saying is if I want to represent hair as something that is solid, you'd be able to understand, like, just from a visual point of view. It's like something I mentioned in one of my videos recently, how the human brain can identify or recognize what something is symbolically. Like, think of a show like Peanuts, where the characters have dots for eyes, or just a round curve for a smile, right? So, like, you already know those are eyes, though they look nothing like what an actual human eye looks like. And it's basically the same thing when it comes to hyperrealism. But photorealism, which is still beautiful, like, don't get me wrong, people who can do that, it's really admirable, especially on large canvases. You get all the pores and stuff. It's beautiful stuff. But it is limited in that it needs to be one for one with the reference. You can be creative with it, I believe. Like, for example, let's say you get someone to pose for you, right? With whatever it is, whatever theme you have in your mind, and you draw that. Then there is a level of originality or bringing something of your own to the table. What I get to do with hyper realistic drawings, and you can correct me if I'm using the wrong terms, I don't think so. So, but with hyperrealism, it doesn't have to do all of that to capture the essence and the feeling and even the person that's being drawn. I'm pretty sure when I look back at this picture one day, I'll see all the areas in which it could have been better, but I'm glad I did it anyways. And that's the only way you get better. It's just by doing and reflecting, and then you do it again, you do it better, and you do it, more informed than the last time. That's the way to learn. I'm wanting to see whether I should keep focusing on the hair. Well, I can finish with that because there's still stuff that I'd like to do uh, with the face, and it involves erasing. It involves and the right kind of erasing, using erasing to render, using the eraser to render. That's it. When I first saw that, it blew my mind. And when I first saw it, it was literally last year. I'm not someone who went to formal art school, anything like that. I learned at home, got courses, got books, just followed people who were already there, already where I wanted to be, and just ran the play. So when I got exposed to somebody who used an eraser that way, that was like, what? Mind blowing. And now I take advantage of that wherever I can. I'm gonna get into it a bit because I'm also gonna use the stump. I'm gonna add a little bit more detail later. Right now, I'd rather just cover the whole forehead with the charcoal and then just work to remove it because at this point, you know, not everywhere, but certain areas where it's like, it feels it will just be easier if I do it that way and try to keep it all in one place. Okay. And the lighting. Oh, even there. Let's do that. Let's cover that up. Okay. There's even some on the hair, but we may do that later. We may, depends. I don't have all the time in the world. There's an event I have to prepare for tonight. So we'll do what we can. That's all you can do, right? Over there, we're gonna make it a bit darker. Over here, something like that. We can do that just to not make it so present, but it's up to us in our creative decision making if we want to or not. It's almost like our eyes are too small or something, but let's see. Initially, this was planned to be like a recorded thing where voicing over a drawing session, but I've run out of time. I've had so many things to do recently. Launch of my book, then there's the appearance of podcasts, and then there's the challenge that I host every month, the Drawing Comeback Challenge. And it's basically the same ethos as I shared in the beginning of the video. Fall in love with drawing again. I teach you how to rediscover the reason why you love drawing in the first place and I also demystify art myths that really just hold you back from unleashing your full potential. And the framework that I used that kept me drawing consistently without burnout, without stressing, and with all that joy that I had from when I was a kid. You remember what it felt like to draw with that level of joy, right? If you still have it, amazing. If you don't, there is a way to get it back. You just don't have to do it on your own. I've heard someone speak about how lonely it seems people are in a world full of so much connection. Like, we've never been this connected and yet this divided, yet this isolated. Which is funny. Like, it's weird. Like, not humorous funny, but it's the last thing anyone expected with social media and what it's allowed us to do today. So, and I think that's true. I think it's one of the signs of the times that we're in. And not, that doesn't mean, we can't choose to be more intentional with our time together. It doesn't mean we don't make the effort to communicate with one another and be a difference, be the change you want to see. I've learned to focus on solving the problems in my own life than worrying too much about the problems of others. Like, there's so much that I have to accomplish in my own life that I can't afford to consume all the energy that I have on other people's and then delegating the rest to me as if that's gonna move my life forward in a desirable way. Probably not, as if I had to say that. But it's what we do. It's what we do, knowingly or unknowingly. The energy that we could have put into other things, into actually moving our life forward in the way that we desire, we used to look at the lives of others so that subconsciously we don't feel too bad about where we are. And at some point, you have to come and make a decision. At some point, you gotta say, man, I'm tired of making excuses on myself for myself. I need to do something different. If you want to see change, you first have to change, right? Sounds obvious, but we keep looking for ways to not have to confront that and then stay where we are. And, well, enjoy the depression. So, any way that moves my life forward, I then want the same thing for other people. I don't know what's going on with my voice. Just adding a bit more black. You could say shadow, I guess. It's not the word that came to mind, so that's why I didn't say it. If I wanted, I could come back and just give it a little bit more TLC, but I think with the time I have left, I can do something meaningful and it's not gonna look rushed. There's only one drawing that I rushed of my wife's, and it was our anniversary one. I knew I wanted to do it, but it's no one's fault but mine that I delayed in doing it when I had the time to at least get started. There's some things that you learn from drawing, like the principles and everything, that only click later on in your life in the sense that you understand why it's done this way and not, instead of avoiding that process. So the layer up, the warm up, I like it. I don't do it all the time, but I don't avoid it either. You know, if I'm doing like a live, like a Let's Draw live, and I hadn't planned on drawing anything specific, then yeah, I won't do any prelim stuff. But if I did want to come and draw something specific, I do the warm ups because I already know in my mind what I'm going to draw. So how's that looking? And then comes the question of style and stuff, like, how would it look if it were just fuller and then the detail was just on the hair, you know? Questions like that come to mind in the process. Not everything an artist that you've seen, like, seen them make was premeditated from scratch to finish. Many things that you figure out along the way that you decide to explore. So you're watching me explore that stuff. You know, it's because I want to catch the highlights that appear on top of the head. Can still do that, but it doesn't have to be done now. You notice that I didn't add anything more here, and that's for stylistic purposes. It um, doesn't have to be looked at or done or touched, if that's a better word. And so I'm using the kneadable eraser. I'm getting that depth, that layer in. And here I can sometimes I speak under my breath and have to catch myself. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Somebody might hear what I'm saying. Or what just came randomly as a thought that has nothing to do with this. Like nothing. Just trying to make the cheeks a bit brighter because there's more light being caught on them. Oof. There's also this. I should also erase this a bit, you know. The eyelid doesn't have to be that pronounced. It's visible, yes, but there's a there's a better way in which we can still show it there and not have it be so weird. Not weird, but like present is the word. When you add strong lines onto faces, it tends to denote age. Makes a person seem older, and maybe that's not even what you wanted to do. So, gotta be aware of that. Younger people, softer edges, and less of the hard lines. And then let's do that first. Okay, and you can still see the eyes. And this area is dark. I'm gonna get my stump. This is just to add some of that darkness. Be careful not to make it too dark. Not that I can't erase it, but you don't need more work. You don't need to work more than is necessary. Okay. And then even there, because this side of the temples are catching some shadow from my hair. And here, this part needs to be erased. Because it's not the whole way. It just starts and ends somewhere here. Yeah, not so deep. Nothing crazy. Just a clear distinction between eyelids and the cheeks, in that there's a part of her face that's catching more light than the other. Isn't it amazing that like you don't have to be married to, you know, one decision that you've made? You can always correct along the way. I think that's beautiful. And sometimes you are working with ink or something, and the only thing you can do is draw something new. And again, that's still another opportunity. Doesn't have to be this one. This doesn't have to be the one that, you know, sets people's hearts on fire or something. It can still very much be a great drawing with so many lessons. Like I did recently, figure drawing of a pose that I think the next day, how long it took, where I could really see the issues that um, I didn't notice when I first started. So not even first started, when I finished. Like by the time I was finished, I didn't even notice these issues being that prevalent. So it will happen. But now that I'm aware, now that I'm informed, you can imagine that I'm gonna work more with where um, proportions are concerned. Uh, give it the due diligence that it needs from me. I was not trying to do that. I might find a way to prevent that from happening in the future. But right now, nope. At least in terms of how I'm holding the stump, things like that. So you wanna, like, you can use it to blend. I haven't been in this drawing. It's got enough charcoal on it that I'm just using it as a different drawing tool. There we go. And you have to be careful when you're capturing likeness because you can end up making the picture a bit, I don't know, can lack character. Like it can start getting a bit too stiff, you know. It feels to me like that side of her eyes is darker. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm going with right now. Still have to do the lips. Mm-mm. Let's do that. And then fill up the iris. It's an iris, right? Um, can always add some white in the eyes if need be. But yeah, it's kind of like disappearing into the to the hair, bro. This part is it's got so much dark here. It's really cool when looking at the reference. So weird. I'm not sure what's going on with my eyes. I'm seeing double. But just wanted to add a bit more detail there. Just a bit more. Nothing crazy. But it's nothing that can be fixed. Alright. Right. Just adding some of that. Still loose strands of hair. And then moving here. It's crazy how much darker this thing can get. I was so sure it was darker before. Nope, it's darker now. In fact, I feel like I was more afraid of going darker in the past. just based on when you see my wife's drawings, the drawings I did of her, rather, felt like I shouldn't, or it was just more comfortable not to. I can't really tell you why. I can tell you that it's what I did, and now I'm not afraid or uncomfortable. Maybe uncomfortable is the right word. So I didn't feel anxious about doing it or not doing it, you know. It's not what I experienced at all. So yeah, there's a part of me that just wants the hair to be fully black. I'm not sure. Whew. I actually have quite some time left, and it's more than I thought, which I'm glad about. Just a little bit of like some, little bit going out like that. Uh, okay. Oh, isn't it like cool when you have to shade skin? Like, man, I really need to do justice here. I need to get this right. I need to get this part of her eyes right. Maybe if I do this, it's light, just adding some shadow here and there, And that's why I don't want to rush drawings anymore. It's like you can miss out on a lot of detail or adding a lot of detail. Yeah, that's true. This eye is plain. Need to add some eyelashes. And add that there. It's a little bit of style. I mean, she has um, eyelashes. I believe all human beings do, but the fact that the fact that wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily say it's that pronounced, but I did that just to add some style. It still looks like her as it should. Let's do that like that. Nose is going like that. Need to fix minor thing that I found that I caused or didn't notice. I am almost done with this. I just need to get the nose right. It's a bit tricky. Hmm. Let's see. Just a bit higher. I'm not saying this is gonna fix it, but I know it's gonna help. The least it can do is help. Like at the very least. Well, it could also make it worse, but I don't think so. I don't think that's the case here. So here, hmm. So even here, just maybe a bit off, and just yeah, figuring it out. Like I said, I'm sure when I look back one day, I'll see what I could have done differently, but I'm glad I did it. And that should be the most important thing when it comes to your art. Be glad that you took the step. You chose to do it anyways. Not as skilled as you desire to be cool, but you chose to do it anyways. Mhm. I wouldn't even say that what I'm adding is what it needs, but it's a game of exploration and figuring it out on the go. That the right eye looks a bit off. Need to do something about that. I don't know if it's the eyelashes or something. There's something about it that needs to be toned. I don't know. I don't know if it's too present. Trying to figure it out. Hmm. Okay. Okay, that's also something I add there. Minor stuff now. Gonna wrap up soon. How much I can do with this, and I think there's a lot that I would have taken from this experience that I feel like I'm glad I did this. And looking forward to the next portrait I make of this amazing lady. She is the mother of my kids, both my kids. Got married in 2022. We met on the internet during the pandemic, and really grateful to God for her life. She has pushed me and motivated me the best ways that a friend ever could. You know, she's my best friend. She's my partner. She's a woman who I continually do what I can to win her over every day, and I'll gladly do that for the rest of my life. So to be able to draw her with the best of my abilities, that she even allows me to just fumble because I've had not so good drawings. And she didn't love me any differently. So I'm grateful. Just do that a bit. There's that little thing going on with the lip. And let's see, just a bit of making it lighter there. Okay. Yeah. I feel like adding a line to her nose, just like the top here. Nothing crazy, just that, you know. Yeah, something like that. Nothing crazy, nothing redonkulous. Mm. Let's see if I can just make it a bit darker here. Because that's kind of what's going on. So by the nose, this area. It's not strong things, you know. It's just very subtle things that you probably wouldn't notice if I didn't touch it. Outline the hair here. And I'm gonna add some highlights to the hair. I'm happy with the lips. Okay. Maybe that's what the other eye was missing. I don't know. Let's see. Doesn't seem to be as dark the left side, so I don't know if that's it. Yeah, that's better. Just a bit better, but that makes a difference. It's too black. Could have made them both the same, you know. And I really just could, but I add a little bit here just so that they look close enough. And suppose this as well, the eyelash. See. Hmm. I don't know what is up with that eye, but I'll tell you for a fact, it is not my wife. That's the problem. It's me. Let me see. That's a bit better. Let's see. Is it? I'm gonna leave it alone. I don't think this eye wants to be bothered. And I can't be bothered any longer to deal with it. I can't You hear that? I, as in an I, as in, if you've still tuned in up to this far, shout out to you, man. I hope you enjoyed watching the creation of this drawing, and um, have any questions. If you'd like to know more about how I can help uninspired artists to find love and trying again, you can reach my email, which you should find linked below. Not linked, but written in the description. And I hope we can work and you get value out of the experience. We need to see more artists, man. We need more artists. It's not enough creative people out there right now, and the more creative people they are, the more impact we can make in the world, and the more fulfilled I think people in general will be. One more reason to wake up in the morning, It's possible to do what you love and make a living off of it. Trying to get some strands and nothing crazy either, because just a few strands, ain't nothing crazy. But of course, it's not the entire. It's not the entire hair that's completely like this, and it's not the entire hair that's completely black. So I'm trying some stuff out. I don't know if it makes the drawing look better or worse. And so if you see or you feel like better the original idea or better how things were before you tested a bit, you can always just darken it. You are not limited. You do not have to what's the word? Bind yourself into a decision that can easily be changed. You're in control here. You decide what the people want to see, what they pay attention to. Been talking about that eye so much, it's probably being paid attention. Like it's it probably has the attention that I didn't even want. But that's the beauty of recording this thing live, rather than performance. And there's nothing wrong with having something more prepared. But yeah, so that's basically it. I do thank you for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. I do have Let's Draw Fridays, which are the times that I'm drawing live, and you can hop in, ask any art related question you have. You can ask anything really. The Fridays are chill. And so you can catch me there. You can catch me on my socials. I'm everywhere. But yeah, thanks for watching, tuning in. Your thoughts. Let me know if there's anything that stood out to you that you took away from the drawing, which you can now apply to your own routine. I'm feeling like adding texture here in the back, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. And then just stuff, nothing really, just nothing specific, but just something in the background, you know. Thought it was the end. Oops, plot twist. But I won't spend much time on this. Is what every artist says. Just needs one more thing. How many one more things until the thing is actually done? Oops. It's a bit out of. Okay. Now it's done. I'll put my name on it and everything, but that's it, y'all. And hope you enjoyed. Stay drawing, stay blessed, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.